皆さんこんにちは。
Hello everyone. Handling large-scale traffic, Happy New Year line in a PayPay Festival. That's the title of this panel discussion. Let me introduce the panel speaker. I myself as a moderator. My name is Matsumoto of ValueCommerce. So ValueCommerce, providing the services to the Yahoo Japan, tries to address the issues of the high load. But today we can hear the use cases of the Happy New Year line and the behind the scenes. So I'm very excited about the session. Thank you so much for joining me. Mr. Nakamura, please. My name is Nakamura of Line. I am a senior engineering manager of messaging and platform engineering with focus on the back end. Mr. Kobayashi, please introduce yourself. My name is Kobayashi of Yahoo Japan, in charge of Yahoo Shopping. Specifically, so I am the senior manager of Shopping Service Group, Commerce Group. Let's look at the agenda and then goes into the first topic, load comparison between peak times and normal. Can you give us more color on that? Maybe the line case to be shared? Okay, so this is actually the normal time of the traffic. This is the global traffic as a whole. And 10 p.m. is the peak. But regardless of the weekdays and the weekend, it is very smooth traffic volumes. But at the time of the disaster, like the earthquakes on a Monday, or World Cup, which is slated to next week, so at the moment of the goal score, and then the peak actually jump up, only to Japan see like a double of the traffic, for example. But on the other hand, the Happy New Year line, the peak traffic is just like this. I talked about this topic multiple times in the conference, but the chart is completely different. There are three features. First of all, this is the Happy New Year line. So the traffic always comes. It is inevitable, and we know that. And we already experienced the 11s once. So then the 12th Happy New Year line is just around the corner. And as for the volume, the Japan is overall the peak. As you may know, the red and white syncing competition here in Japan is usually end at 11:45 p.m. and gradually the traffic is picking up. And then the 2 to 3 time lag right after the midnight, the peak comes and compares the regular normal time, like 5 times, or they got 3 times higher. And then that actually stays a while, so we have to monitor the situation. And that's not the over, because like 1 hour after, then the Taiwan and Thailand, so there will be the 3 peak time. So the tricky part for us is that if we couldn't handle the Japanese traffic, then within the 2 hours, the 2 more traffic peak would come to us, and we need to address them. Japan's peak is the highest, and Taiwan and Thailand, their requests are very different, because in Japan, people usually use more text. But Taiwan and Thailand, they use more like images and a video, so the monitoring points are different among countries. So this is the annual volume that we process. Starting from 2013, in the early days, we haven't been able to process that much because of the lower user number. But on top of that, system couldn't really address the issue. So the outage back then we had to put a lot of limitations and throttling to handle the situation. And in recent years, the system became more stable, which allow us to handle more traffic with additional features implemented. So that's the situation in line. Thank you, Mr. Nakamura. So every 1 hour the peak comes and depends on the country is that the usage is different. It's just very specific situation as a global service provider. Okay, then Mr. Kobayashi, can you share the peak time use case in Yahoo Japan? Okay. So first of all, can I actually start with the service structure? So maybe you can think about the EC service. Same as Yahoo Japan shopping, we have a search page and the shopping page, and you go through the multiple pages, and at the end you can find the complete page, which is at the right bottom of the screen. So this is the entire flow of a purchase. So based on this flow, I would like to give a little bit more details. So the comparison between the right and left chart. To your left is regular traffic or normal time. So to your right is so-called sales or special sales campaigns ongoing, or PayPay Festivals is here as well. So the yellow representing the item detail means that like a product's pages, and green representing search page, and blue representing the cart page. It's kind of hard to see that the very bottom line is a purple, and the purple line representing the top page. So if you check the regular traffic, there is a sudden trend change, which means that there are like a couple of spikes highlighted by 3 in circle when a popular product is available on the page, and that push up the traffic to the peak. And another point that I would like to draw your attention is 4 in the circle. The spike appears multiple times, especially at the timing of the sales just started. That is actually the outset of the sales, and heading towards the end of the sales campaign, the customer comes in the last minutes to get the things. So the usually is the peak comes at the outset, at the end. And also, I would like to draw your attention to the cart. Cart really showing the spikes. Some of the others showing the spike, but not as big as a cart. So that big spike is observed in cart. So this is actually the situation in Yahoo Japan shopping. So how much is the difference? And these are the numbers to tell you the difference. At the outset of the sales, compared to the normal time, event peak is 30 times bigger, and the end of the event is 20 times bigger, and the rapid trend change is 100 times difference compared to the normal time. So these are the areas that we've been having difficulties. So that's about the Yahoo Japan situation. 100 times is really something. Yeah, it comes out of the blue, and we can't really see and know like when that will come to us. It really depends on the situation in Twitter and Facebook. Once the SNS really explode, that really could be the nudging to the peak. Thank you. So the next topic is like load handling and preparation for surviving heavy traffic. I would like to hear more specific solutions. Can you go first, Mr. Nakamura? Yeah, let me start with a Happy New Year line. December 31st, that's the year end, but the preparation already started 3 months ago. Software developers are actually shifting their mode to the preparation. We're right in the middle of that. So the developers and those who are taking care of the storages, they are more like SRD and they work accordingly. There are actually 2 works to do. One is capacity planning. Because we have accumulated past data, so based on the past data, what kind of the traffic we can estimate and forecast. And there are some like a difference between this year and the last year. So what could be the difference between 2 years? And then based on that, like we do the expansion work. And then the expansion cannot happen right away. So the preparation needs to be done ahead of the time. And another one is improvement. If something happens, we need to prepare the dynamic toggle on the emergency for the throttle or limitation. And some of the toggle, like it would be executed first time in a 12 months. So we need to check that if it's really works. And another one is that there are so many ways in this same key is called multiple times, or maybe some works can be bundled together. So these kind of the ways can be optimized. Or to reduce the storage side, we can implement a cache. So these are the things that we do as a part of the improvement. And last but not least, when the server go down, we have to make sure that the failover would work properly. So the next is a load test, which we usually spend quite a lot of time. So this is actually the test to simulate the New Year bursting on the specified servers in the productions. So backend engineers and SR people work together to work on this, specifically on the front end server. We can adjust the request. So to the specific server, we usually send 3 times or 5 times more traffic to simulate the New Year bursting, so that we can identify where it would be the performance bottleneck, and also the thread heap and a dump from the metrics to gain a deeper insight. And also sometimes we can discover and realize that unexpected issues, if there is any missing metrics or the safety net to be deployed, this is the occasion for us to identify them. There are 2 types of the load test. First one is a gradual ramping up the load, starting from the 100% to 200% and 300% to make sure that the system is tolerable to handle. And then another test is to increase like rapidly. So even the server is not really warmed up, how much of the regression we would have. So that's actually something that we check on that. So this page is about the storage messaging. And at the center of the slide line, apps, lettuce, and the H base is actually just the storages that we can communicate. We do the capacity planning and expansion work if it's necessary. And the workload is different. And some inactive users started to work, which is very different from the normal time. So we need to make a fine balance. And also as a part of the broader test, this is we announced in the past transactions on the log in a Kafka to be loaded, so that we can simulate the New Year traffic. This is one of our schemes, so we'll do that. And also on the HBase specific, we have a region, which is a partition of the data. And we can transfer the region to another server. So maybe it's allocate the region 3 times and 5 times to the other server to offset the balance. And the last part is the chaos engineering. storage facilitation is developed by yourself, so we need to check if it works properly. And it's based on the planning, and we cover the production environment, and it's very simple. Usually it's the turn off the star node or use the IB table to make sure that if the failover works properly.
And also recovery time, how long it takes before recovery. We confirm and see whether it is now becoming longer or if there is an unexpected side effect or not. And lastly, the report line needs to be confirmed as well. And we confirm the report line depending on the task. That's all from line. Thank you. Chaos engineering. It is very progressive approach. Yes, in yesterday's Yahoo session, Yahoo Japan session was presented. It's not that large scale, but not just using open scale as is, but we use clustering technology on our own. So we are confirming the reliability of that. Thank you very much. Next, from Yahoo Japan, what measures you're taking? Yes, let me discuss that. And what Yahoo Japan is going to present is that we have some actions, and I'd like to talk about two of those actions. Maybe there's some overlap with the line and the load testing, and also to the value that we tested, we do the rate limiting or throttling configuration. And for load testing, as line presented, for the sudden peak or sudden spike, rather we try to increase the load gradually and do the testing through that pattern. And one on the screen, this is a metrics graph. And this is a metrics graph for load testing. And there are so many applications. That's why you see a lot of lines. And at the same time, we put the loads and see how applications behave. For the increase of the request, the latency increases or the latency worsens, and we confirm. Let me see. How do we do the ordinary load testing? If you look at the left-hand side diagram, we create the request of the users and do the load testing. The environment for the load testing is to the front-end applications. We have separate crawling applications, and if those applications crawl to the front end, then there are server-side requests from browsers, and we store them once. And at the time of the load testing, we put the load multiple times, and not just the reference load, but we also need to put some renewal or update loads. So we do the load testing, and let's sell this amount of money. We have that sort of goal, and we expect what the traffic will be, and we will put the load and see whether it can withstand that planned load. And there are two different patterns of the load testing as well. We have so-called full system load testing, and we are doing it company-wide. Why? Because at Yahoo Japan, we have on-premise data centers internally. Therefore, we must put load to all the systems. Otherwise, we won't be able to know whether it can actually withstand the load from infrastructure as well as platform team. We do involve all the people and the department to do the full system load testing. And we do that once or 2 months before the sales. And if we confirm there's no problem, or if there's any problem, then we will try to fix them. Second, 2 months before the sales, we do the full system load, and toward the sales, we need to update the application codes, even if we do the full system test. Therefore, after injecting the new code, we must ensure that the capacity does not deteriorate. So we have the load testing, always load testing. So rather than on a weekly basis, maybe we have less load, but by putting the load weekly, we confirm there's no deterioration. And lastly, we have rate limit. The way we think about the rate limit is we don't know when the peak comes for any particular requests. And if we cannot predict if the unpredicted traffic comes, then the user won't be able to purchase. And that is something that we must avoid. Therefore, if we want to prevent server going down, some users might find errors, but the majority of the errors requests can be handled appropriately. So we have rate limit at certain point. But if we do this, for instance, at the last minutes peak, if they are rate limited, then the users won't be able to purchase. In order to avoid that, we extend the time of the sales by 2 hours. So the sales time or used to end at 12 o'clock night, but we extended to 2 a.m. next day. So we have some actions against the overload with businesses. That's all. Thank you, Kobayashi-san. Let's have a discussion. I have some point that I wondered, which I would like to discuss with you. In Nakamura-san's presentation, you're working with dev team and the SI team, and for the load testing, both teams as a SLE work unanimously. And in which organization do you belong to? I belong to backend development, so SR team is a different team. I see. For the load testing, various teams work together, right? What about you, Kobayashi-san? SLE team. You are SLE team member. And for load testing, or dev team is working together with you as an organization. In order to take actions against the load overload, we are organized. There are roles to drive the load testing or to take appropriate measures for load, and the dev team needs to come up with their proper action, so we communicate with them. And at line, the SRE team takes a lead and give feedback to the dev team. Yes, SRE is taking a lead, but there are some changes because that is only understood by development team, so we need to give an input and prioritize. So there are 1 year worth changes from dev team in advance, right? So it's challenging. I understand. Thank you. So now that you asked each other's talk, any question? Well, if the popular products are registered, I understand it spikes, but with the API or rate limit, it is covered, right? Yes. There are some things that we can't predict the trends, and also we have some accidents as well. And what is disastable is that all the users will fail. So I think this is the best way. So with today's topic, I didn't talk about, but the first comes first serve. Then there's some requests, and maybe that becomes a hotspot or pain point. So we are taking the rate limit as well in order to prevent that. Oh, I wanted to ask you, the load testing, there are some patterns of increasing load at a time, but we haven't been able to do that because there are some issues of increasing load at once. And are there any issues while doing that, or anything that you have to prepare in advance? Let me see. It's just a matter of changing configuration, so it's easy. And I will be talking about outage later, and we implemented in line with outage. And for New Year, we are fully prepared, but like Yahoo, we are not doing that always yet. So we'd like to do that as well. Thank you. There are so many questions or endless questions, but we have some time limit, so we'd like to move to the next topic. And you are doing load testing to prevent the disasters, but in the past, maybe there are some failures, and maybe past outages are helping you come up with some actions or maybe continuous efforts for improvement in the future. Any advice? Nakamura-san, please. For before talking about the failures, the conviction of line engineers and how can we take a pride in preventing outages. The failures happen, so there's some unpredicted outages always. So we should not blame particular people or teams, even if outage comes, because it happens. But rather, if outages happens, what sort of actions did we take, or in the mid-term to the long term, how did we improve? That is the focus of our team. And in the end of or in the beginning of the year, there is a traffic. That's not an exception. So if there is an outage by next year, we must come up with the actions for the next year. And this we have been doing this from the beginning. And not just taking actions for New Year line, but rather we are assuming 3 times or 5 times peak in developing products. So we are willing to do or we are trying to do, but there always are outages. And if there's any time, I'd like to introduce two outages. And there were non-synchronous delay with regard to the storage to the HBase. There were some delay of the writing and using the asynchronous job queue to handle. And because of the delay, it stopped. And the queue was purged finally, and the lost data on that day, the previous job was written on that day and recovered. And that was at the timing at night, and we could not take actions by the next timing. So it affected the next cycle, and which was unfortunate. And I would like to introduce you the messaging mechanism for ordinary users. We have so-called incremental sync. So to get the increment from the server, not just messaging, but also the trend and traffic updates information are taken from the server and put them into the client local DB. And other inactive users or the user who logged into the desktop for the first time, the server in advance do the indexing as message box and send them at once as a batch. And the message box became a problem. And the message box at that time, there are 4 tables, and the data was written into these 4 table features very heavy, and we had to improve HBase scale the writing, so it wasn't such a huge challenge. On the other hand, not just writing, but atomically, the incremental processing existed, and that was doing costly computing, not just writing, but log, read, and write. So that was a scale bottleneck. As a result, HBase server had the issue of the processing delay with minor GC. But that was a structural issue, so we did the replacement and we wrote to a new storage. And we merged tables into one, and so that we could do that once. And also the reader side used to have a lot of cost, but we decided to process with runtime. As mentioned, for inactive users, we move the processing to read. That was the first outage improvement. Thank you. And this issue took place, and then you investigated the cause of the problem. And at what timing? Well, you talked about the recovery, and what was the point? Do you have any particular point or threshold? And if you cannot do that, are you going to move to the recovery? Do you have that plan in advance? Well, this was a failure long time ago, so we couldn't take that action after the peak in 8 o'clock a.m. We thought we purged because we could not wait because it won't be stopped. So it was already an outage, but we decided to do whatever we could do. So user woke up and that we made sure that messages are recovered. So that's why we wrote recovery job at night and executed early in the morning. Amazing. So you had the pride as a developer as much as you could. I understand. Kobayashi-san, any comment? Well, putting aside technical, I thought you are having a pride. That's cool. And I am a member of SRE team, and there are some SRE policies, and we did something similar. And dev engineers have pride, and it's a very good environment.
Yeah, we really would like to spread this to the others. Thank you for your comment. Okay, can you share the Yahoo Japan's outage case? Yeah, we have one, or if time allows, I have 2 cases to be shared. But this is actually as the order management database related issue. There's a database and a writing was delayed from the card, and then it comes to the platform for the order. The writing need to be done multiple things at the same time, so they are async. Means that we have latency, but the latency was like much longer than expected. The reason for that is to your left, number 3 in the circle. After receiving data in the database, an order in the database, and when we open the order history, and the user can check the history, but it turned out there was no data in history. And today was the discount date, and what's really happened, that was actually the fault. So, and what did we do to address this issue is, to your right, highlighted by red, what we actually did was to create another order database. One is actually a sync writing and another one's an async writing. So the sync writing, because writing, like the honor condition is very strict, so that we should keep it really fast. And this sync writing database is the one that the users can go and get their history of order. But the 2 and 3 in the red, 3 is always behind the 2, and there will be latency. So once the things comes into the 3, then that is the time of the confirmed order. So number 5, which is kind of hard to read, so that we decided to add another status, say that its order is processing status, to prevent users from buying the same thing for twice. So this is actually how we address. So duplicated order. I do remember, because I was in charge of the value on commerce and service. Sorry we caused some trouble to you. But to you left, the structure. You've been sticking with the left structure, but because of the issue at the time, the issue was actually triggered. But because of some structural change that we implemented, and that actually triggered the cause, well, the sales was on increase, but one particular year, the size of the increase was significant and much more than the rest of the years. And we couldn't really confirm that that sizable increase would be coming down the road. We knew that the things have been increased, but because this explosive increase caused the delay. So right now you are under the structure highlighted in red, and you're handling the festivals. Yeah, it was 2021 March. So ever since we've been in this structure, mitigating and reducing the number of unfold. Mr. Nakamura, do you have any questions? Just a one thing. There are two database for management. And I just wonder what kind of consistency they have. Can't you merge them into the one? Sorry, it's too simple. But the order database does not own every single data. And also, although the database owns the orders, but if all the orders come into the database, that would really make the database really heavy. So that the order database is only the one that the person can refer to as a order history. So the only 12 months equivalent data is accumulated that both of them are used occasionally to complement each other. Thank you.
So this is the issue of inventory for EC system, and there's a thing that we have to pay attention to. That was very helpful. Going a little bit back to the topic that we used to discuss. So the sudden peak can be blocked with a rate limit in advance according to your configuration, but the rate limit, the threshold, I think is hard to adjust. You take measures against the load, and do you tune or adjust the rate limit number as well? Yes, exactly. Before doing the load testing, we have the goal value, and if it goes beyond that, maybe this amount of products will be sold, and maybe this is the right traffic, and we have the set goal. And if you clear that is the problem, and then the value is a threshold that we predict to be higher than expected. I see. At line, you do the rate limit, and also the result of the load testing is reflected on the rate limit, or at line. For messaging, we don't do a lot of rate limit. Rather, we try to remove restrictions. I see. So you are trying to remove those rate limits. And for customer measures, we try not to have too much load. So we may sometimes have rate limit. What any other questions? Do you think the second topic will be hard to cover? Yes, we wish we could, but the time is limited. So let's skip the second topic. Today we heard different stories, and there are some impressions or any thoughts or ideas that you'd like to do at your company in the future. Well, it was a short time, but I heard some cases, and for the load measures, there are some points that you should look at. I think these are common, and services and system architecture and the failure points may differ by system on architecture. On the other side, how can we overcome those issues? And the chaos engineering was one of the approaches, and also the test automation, the other, and to do the drilling. And so you can overcome those issues, and we like to do that as well at that company. And from rather than from engineering point of view, maybe from mindset, the developer's mindset or SIE policy behind the scene to prevent the failure and to prevent the recurrence of the problem. Maybe your culture is excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Nakamura-san. Rather than technology, the organization, because SIE CI manager, and you are SRE lead, Kobayashi, and at Line, there's so many works for backend and for chaos engineering and SRE. These are the things that we have done, even if we did not know those words. But we have come to the limit, but we'd like to split the role so that so we are taking a special action for New Year, but we hope we can organize a team or develop the team so we can do that always. Thank you very much. Kobayashi-san, any comment from the line case? There are some points that we'd like to learn. There are 2 points that we want to do, and for the load testing to increase the traffic all at once, we haven't done that, so we would like to try that out as well. And chaos engineering at Yahoo Japan, at other department, there's some, but there are certain things that we haven't been able to try, and so we'd like to mimic what you did. So maybe we can bring down a part of the system and confirm what happens. So these are the two that we'd like to try. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We wish we could have more deep dive, but the time has come. So this concludes the large-scale traffic measures from the Happy New Year line and PayPay Festival case. Thank you very much.